Welcome aboard. Welcome to the podcast. It's time for Haack Talk with Jerry Haack. I had a young man say to me, "So tell me, why the F would I hire you?" Most of my stuff anymore, here's the cool thing about getting old, you become an expert in things if you manage to live long enough, Simple background, grew up in northwest Iowa in the town of Lee Mars, Iowa, home of Wells the Blue Bunny and the ice cream capital of the world, which I carry with me proudly. I've been in sales my entire life. As a matter of fact, I remember going back in the archives of when I was a little boy. When you do the kind of work that I do, you have to go back and you go into the archives of your psyche and start to pick out stories that happened in your life to help you understand why you do what you do. So one of the stories that I've got happened when I was 5 or 6 years old. There was a family get together. I said something, made everybody laugh, and my father said, "Gerald, if bullshit were music, you would have a brass band." For which everybody laughed at that too, and I laughed, but I had no idea what he was talking about. And as I look back, I wasn't like my dad. My dad loved me fiercely, but I just wasn't like my dad. My two brothers liked to build things and they could put stuff together, and it just never really appealed to me. My dad was a World War II veteran, MP in the Philippines with the Navy, and he's a real man's man. I loved him for that. But I was more cut from the swath of my mother's father, who sold tombstones and life insurance, smoked cigars, and had a hired man run his farm. And he spent most of his day, the latter years of his life, in a bar, drinking and doing that. So to me, he sounds like a genius. Anyway, he died young. Going back to why I do what I do, I've always been in sales. I've always connected with people. I am extroverted. I get my energy from others. So sales has always been fascinating to me. I got my education and got into sales. And started off in the hardest sales that there is, insurance. And I moved into media. And I ended up in the ad agency business. And I did that for a number of years, and that's really where I cut my teeth in understanding how people make money. Being able to look at this business, and this business, 50 different businesses, there's a correlation that runs between all of them, and that is people. And when the people are engaged and the people understand what the vision is, then that's when the results are at their best. So from that, I learned how to write marketing plans. And in the back of my mind, I always thought maybe that's what I was born to do, is write marketing plans and help people get what they want. Moved on, ended up doing a bunch of radio stations, and they got sold out, and did some importing of product. I helped them franchise a business or two. And along the way, I hired a bunch of people, trained a bunch of people, and learned what it was like to really get people to step through their own fear and go after things and really stretch themselves and be the best version of themselves that they could be. So that's basically got me into my 50s, and I went out on my own. I started a company up called It's All Marketing, and had a dozen clients or so and was doing just fine. And a buddy of mine came to me one night. We moved to Minneapolis, and my buddy came over and had dinner with us, and he said, "I just left this workshop, a weekend workshop, through a company called CTI, which is a coaching training institute. And he said, I swear to God, you wrote it. I said, what's that mean? He said, it sounded just like you. All the things that you talk about, it sounded just like you. And so I went and went through the coaching school, got certified in the coaching school, went through their leadership program, and I started up my other company called Primal Leadership Business Coaching. And landed a couple of really nice clients, and I've just ended up doing a lot of different coaching, leadership training, still writing some marketing plans for clients, and it's just opened up a whole new world to me. So when you invite me into your home, or you invite me into your business, I usually circle the team up, and I eliminate the barriers. I eliminate, if possible, I eliminate the table. So it's a circle. And it's always funny, and it's always the same thing. Usually the biggest bravado that's in the room will say something like, oh, we're gonna sing Kumbaya now? You know, ha, ha, ha. The same crap every single time. But I open up the circle for a reason. I'm gonna strip away persona as fast as I can. And I've been told by countless clients that I do that as good as anybody can do it. And I'm going to try to tell you a little story here of why I do what I do. First and foremost, it works. When you bring a team together and you sit in a circle, and it doesn't even have to be the same team. It can be people that are strangers. I try to keep it under 15. Because under 15, it's more manageable. And like if I'm going on a 2.5 day workshop, I'll have a co-facilitator with me so that we're watching the room at the same time. We're not letting anything get slipped between the fingers. So I open up the room. And what it does is it creates intimacy. And for a lot of us, intimacy is scary. And I've heard it broken down into syllables. In, to me, see. Into me, see. See my heart. See my true essence. Well, you know, if you got a bunch of brainiacs sitting around a room, that's rather, what's the point of this? Why are we even doing this? I mean, work is work. I even had a doctor once say, if you think for 1 second I'm going to be vulnerable in front of these men, you're crazy. And I said, I looked at the person who hired me and I said, well, there you go. You want to create teamwork? You want to get these people together? They don't trust each other. They don't freaking trust each other. And you expect them to go into battle together? It's a joke. So anyway, I break it down that way. There's a old book out there already, and Patrick Lencioni's 5 Dysfunction of a Team. Number 1 dysfunction is the absence of trust. Read that book. It describes every company I've ever gone into. There is no trust here. And when there's no trust, there's nothing but artificial harmony. There's no real conflict. Because people are afraid that they're going to get retaliated or resentments are going to happen. Or the boss is sitting there going, no, let me hear what you got to say. And then they put the hammer down on them when they tell the boss they suck. I digress. The part I want to talk about here today is opening up your team. And this is an art form. And sometimes it can be kind of scary, but it's really, really simple. You can do check-ins. You can just bring people together. You can do stand-up check-ins, 5 minutes. And I use the acronym PIES, P-I-E-S. So I'm going to check in, I'll model it. Physically, that's the P. Physically, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm pretty sure I'm coronavirus free right now. So yeah, I'm not working out as much as I want to. Kind of sitting around the house a little too much, feeling more aches and pains than I want. The I, intellectually, is what I'm working on. So what I'm working on is I have made myself available to all of my clients' associates. So not only am I coaching my clients, but I'm making my email accessible to all the associates for an emergency, because people are dealing with this fear of what's happening, you know. Nobody knows what's going to happen. The E in PIES is emotionally. So emotionally, how I feel today, I'm feeling joy. I'm feeling like I got a little bit of rhythm doing this podcast, and it's not so intimidating, so I'm feeling some joy. And I also feel sadness. I'm feeling sadness for all the people out there that are terrified of what's going to happen next. So I'm sad about that. And then the S in PIE's acronym is spiritually. So for me, spiritually is what I want. So what I want is for people to slow down. Breathe. Trust in themselves. Trust in people around them. Try not to react. And when you do react, don't shame yourself for crying out loud. Just own your mistake and be with each other. So that's an example of the PIES check-in. P-I-E-S. What it does for your team, if each person checks in, hey, I'm feeling, my body's feeling this is what I'm working on, this is how I feel, and this is what I want. Pretty clear. It can be 2-3 minutes long. Or you can just do quick check-ins that are something abbreviated to that. I'll give you an example of something that just kicked butt. I got a wonderful man that I work with, and he was late for the workshop that we were doing. And he sat down, and we kind of had to wait a few minutes, and he sits down, and he's kind of hurried, and he checks in right away, and he says, I'm not going to do the PIES check-in, I'm just going to tell you, I feel terrible right now. I just had something horrible happen to me, and I want to share it. So I knew I was late, and I guess I was feeling shame about that, and I was angry because I was sitting at a stop sign, a stoplight. And there was a car ahead of me, and there was like 10 cars. And then the car ahead of me, when all the cars moved, the car ahead of me didn't move. And the lady that got out of the driver's side went and was monkeying around in her back seat. And I was just pissed. Because, you know, what are you doing? The light's going to turn yellow, and you're sitting there messing around in your back seat. What the hell? And then she came back to me, and she said, oh, I'm sorry, but my baby was choking. So obviously, my buddy felt like a dumbass. He had that woman condemned in his head. Stereotypical whatever story made up about that person just because of a stoplight. So anyway, you will uncover the most amazing things in check-ins. Lencioni has a check-in that I used. I was in Chicago, and there's a group I'd never worked with before. In groups that the person who hired me knew of me, knew what I could do. Just trying to bring this team together. It was pretty intimate. There was only 6 of us. Anyway, I did Lencioni's check-in, which is you start with where you grew up, your name, where you grew up, what order you are as far as siblings, and then any challenging or event that you remember as growing up. So I modeled it. Next person went, next person went, next person went, next person went, started to cry. It's always good to have some Kleenex handy. Because if you truly do create intimacy inside of a group, there will be tears. So anyway, this person was a little bit choked up, and I thought, here we go. Started saying where she grew up, number of siblings. And then the challenging thing was that that she was raped by a family member when she was growing up. And everybody in the room was dead silent, and what do you say? So I knelt down in front of her as she was weeping. And when she picked her head up, I asked her how we could support her. And then she said what usually everybody says, something to the effect of, I feel so much shame right now. I said, when you're ready, just look around the room at your team. And then I asked the team, who here trusts this person more now? And everybody was like, oh. So that vulnerability that woman had at that moment was raw courage. She didn't want to carry that story anymore. And she felt so secure with that group. And what it did is it actually brought that team together like this. As gut-wrenching as it was. And of course, we don't want to re-traumatize. We don't want to get into it. We're not psychologists. But what it did was change the whole dynamic in that room. Consequently, the next people that went off and checked in, they went deep as well. So the moral of the story is, if you do check-ins and you're the leader, be vulnerable. Open up. If you do a simple pies check-in, or you just want to do something as simple as, hey, I'm checking in, feeling joy today, I'm ready to rock and roll, I've got some fear that we're not going to get our sales fulfilled this week, but I'm working real hard on this, and this, I'm in. End the check-in with, I'm in. And I usually do that with all the teams that I work with if I come into your places. If you get people to check in and they finish the check-in with, I'm in, for one, it helps the person that's next to them know that it's their turn to go. But secondly, it shows their conviction that they're there to work today. And they're a part of that team. So give it a try.